The Mercedes screeched to a halt in the center of the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers swaying above 300 gasping guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Ethan Cross stood at the podium, his hands trembling as he gripped the microphone, about to detonate his entire existence. "I need to tell you all something," his voice cracked across the stunned silence. "7 years ago, I abandoned a pregnant woman. 2 weeks ago, I discovered I have twin daughters I never knew existed. And tonight," he looked directly at his fiancée, her face draining of color, "I can't marry you, Victoria, because I'm still in love with someone else." The room exploded. Security rushed toward him. Victoria's father stood, face crimson with rage. Phones flashed, recording everything: his company, his reputation, his carefully constructed empire, all of it crumbling in real time before 300 witnesses. But to understand how a millionaire destroyed everything he'd built in a single moment of terrifying clarity, we need to go back to a rainy morning, a bus stop, and 2 little girls who looked exactly like him. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter's Stories, your own family story channel. May the Almighty pour His mighty grace upon you. May every woman be clothed with strength that never bends, honor that never fades, and love that heals generations. May your homes be guarded by peace, your hearts anchored in faith, and your lives lifted by blessings seen and unseen. May every silent tear be wiped away, every burden turned into victory, and every sacrifice rewarded with divine favor. If your heart is true, like this video. If your love is real, write in the comments, "I am with Mr. Peter." Now let's begin this beautiful story with love. The rain had surrendered an hour before dawn, leaving Seattle's streets glazed and reflective like black mirrors. Ethan Cross adjusted his Armani tie in the rearview mirror, ignoring the inexorable tightness spreading through his chest, a sensation that had nothing to do with the perfectly knotted silk constricting his throat. Beside him, Victoria Hartwell scrolled through her phone with the mechanical precision of someone performing a well-rehearsed ritual. Her engagement ring, a flawless 3-carat diamond that had cost Ethan more than most people earned in a year, caught the morning light with every calculated swipe. "We're running behind schedule. The courthouse closes at noon on Saturdays." Ethan nodded, merging the Mercedes back into traffic. This was it. In 30 minutes, they would sign the legal documents binding them together, officially beginning the countdown to their wedding in 8 weeks. It was the intelligent decision, the strategic move, the choice that would preserve both their family empires. That's when the universe cracked open. The woman stood at the bus stop like an apparition materialized from Ethan's buried memories. She wore a charcoal blazer that whispered expensive even from a distance, her natural hair styled in elegant twists that caught the weak sunlight. She was laughing into her phone, gesturing expressively with one manicured hand, while 2 small girls played an intricate hand-clapping game on the bench beside her. The children wore identical purple backpacks, their movements synchronized with the eerie precision that only twins possessed. Ethan slammed the brake pedal. The car behind him blared its horn. Victoria lurched forward against her seatbelt, her phone clattering to the floor. "Ethan, what the—" But he couldn't breathe, couldn't process anything except the woman's profile as she turned slightly, and even from half a block away, even after all these years of trying to forget, he knew that jawline, that exact tilt of her head when she laughed, the graceful architecture of her neck. Sophia Rivers. "Ethan, you've stopped in the middle of traffic," Victoria's voice sharpened with irritation. He forced his foot to the accelerator, forced the car forward, but his eyes remained locked in the rearview mirror. Sophia was still talking, animated and professional. One of the little girls tugged on her blazer. Sophia bent down, kissing the child's forehead with casual tenderness before returning to her call. The girls resumed their game, slapping hands in patterns too complex for their age, giggling when one of them broke the rhythm. They had to be 5 or 6 years old, maybe younger. Ethan wasn't skilled at estimating children's ages. He'd never needed to be. "Someone you know?" Victoria asked, her tone carefully neutral. The lie formed automatically on his tongue. "No, Thought I recognized someone. Wrong person. Victoria studied him for a heartbeat too long, then returned to her phone. We have 23 minutes. Ethan drove on autopilot, his mind performing calculations he had no right to make. 7 years since he'd last seen Sophia. 7 years since he'd accepted the executive position requiring immediate relocation to the East Coast. Since he'd told her she wasn't compatible with his long-term vision. 7 years. Those girls couldn't possibly be older than 6. He nearly rear-ended a taxi. "Ethan," Victoria gripped the dashboard. "What is happening with you today?" "Nothing. I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. His hands trembled against the steering wheel, because if those girls were 6 years old, if they were twins, if Sophia was 3 months pregnant when he'd walked away and never mentioned it because his exact words were, "You're not part of my future, Sophia." No, he was being paranoid. Irrational. Sophia had probably moved on, met someone worthy of her, built an entire existence without him. She'd clearly achieved success. That blazer alone probably cost more than Victoria's dress. The courthouse materialized ahead, a bland municipal building with flags hanging limp in the humid air. Ethan pulled into the parking lot, killed the engine, and sat staring at his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. "Are you having second thoughts?" Victoria's voice softened slightly. "Yes," I wanted to scream. "I just saw a ghost and she might be raising my children and I can't breathe." "No," he said instead. "Just nervous. Normal pre-wedding anxiety."
Victoria smiled, but the expression never reached her eyes. She was too perceptive, too intelligent not to sense the fracture. But she was also too kind to apply pressure. That was Victoria's fundamental problem. She was genuinely good, which made everything infinitely worse. They entered the building together, signed papers, listened to a clerk explain mandatory waiting periods. Ethan heard himself responding to questions, watched his hand form his signature, felt Victoria's fingers intertwine with his as they walked back to the car. On the drive home, a billboard loomed into view. Massive, impossible to ignore. Sophia's face smiled down at him, professional and radiant beside bold typography. "Rivers Consulting, building tomorrow's leaders today." "That's actually an exceptional firm," Victoria commented casually. "They handled the restructuring for my father's most valuable client last year. The owner is supposedly brilliant, some woman who built it from absolute nothing." Ethan couldn't form words. He simply drove, following muscle memory back to the penthouse he shared with Victoria, to the life he'd carefully constructed, to the future he'd strategically engineered. But all he could see were 2 little girls playing synchronized hand games at a bus stop, their faces turned away so he couldn't determine if they had his eyes, his nose, his smile. That night, after Victoria descended into sleep, Ethan stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's electric sprawl. His phone buzzed against the glass coffee table. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. "Hello?" A child's voice, bright, curious, impossibly young. "Is this Ethan Cross?" His heart stopped beating. "Who is this?" "I'm Aria. I found your card at school. It's really shiny. Are you famous?" Ethan's knees weakened. He sank into the nearest chair. "Where did you find your card, Aria?" "On the playground. My teacher says you're important because you have a fancy title. What's a chief executive officer?" "It means I run a company." His throat felt like sandpaper. "Aria, where are your parents?" "Mama's in the shower. She doesn't know I have her phone. I'm not supposed to use it without permission, but I wanted to know if you were real. The card looks like it's from a movie." Ethan's voice emerged strangled. "What's your full name?" "Aria Rivers. My sister's name is Elena Rivers. We're twins, but we don't look exactly the same. Elena has a birthmark on her hand, and I don't. We're 6. Well, we'll be 7 in 3 months. Mama says we're spring babies." The phone slipped from his grip.
He caught it, pressed it back against his ear with shaking hands. "Aria, I need you to— I have to go. Mama's coming out. Bye." The line died. Ethan sat in the darkness, staring at nothing, performing mathematics he knew he shouldn't calculate. Aria said they'd be 7 in 3 months, which meant they were born in spring, which meant conception in late summer. 7 years ago. Late summer. 7 years ago, when he'd still been with Sophia, when they'd spent endless weekends at the lake house, when she'd whispered against his chest that she loved him and he'd been too terrified to reciprocate. 3 months before he'd abandoned her. The twins were his.
Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in his home office, door locked, staring at the business card Aria had described. He'd had thousands printed 6 months ago for a charity gala, embossed platinum lettering on thick obsidian cardstock, premium, expensive, forgettable. He must have dropped one at the event, an event Sophia had obviously attended, because of course she had. Their worlds orbited each other in these carefully maintained corporate circles, close enough to see each other's billboards, distant enough to never actually collide. At dawn, Victoria knocked softly on the door. "You've been locked in there all night." He opened it. She stood in one of his old Yale shirts, hair messy from restless sleep, concern etched across her delicate features. Beautiful, patient Victoria, who deserved someone infinitely better than him. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Talk to me, Ethan." But how could he explain? How could he articulate that a single phone call from a 6-year-old had demolished everything he'd constructed about his life? That he might have daughters he'd never met? That the woman he'd spent 7 years trying to erase from his consciousness had apparently built an empire while raising his children alone? "Wedding stress," he lied. "It'll pass." Victoria studied him with those penetrating dark eyes that missed nothing. "My father called late last night. He wants to announce the merger at our reception, make it official in front of everyone who matters." Right, the merger. The meticulously orchestrated business arrangement that had rescued Ethan's company 3 years ago when bankruptcy loomed like a guillotine. The deal sealed with an unspoken understanding. Ethan would marry Victoria within 5 years. Victoria's father, Marcus Hartwell, was one of the most formidable corporate attorneys on the West Coast. When Ethan's company nearly collapsed under catastrophic investments and market implosions, Marcus restructured everything, absorbed the debt, rebuilt the business from ashes. The price had been crystalline from the beginning. "That's fine," Ethan said automatically. "Is it?" Victoria stepped closer. "Because you look like you're about to run." "I'm not running." "You ran once before." Her voice was quiet but sharp. "I know the story. Your sister mentioned the girl you left behind when you relocated here." Ethan's jaw clenched. That was different, ancient history. 7 years, Victoria said softly. "She was pregnant, wasn't she? The woman at the bus stop yesterday. That's who you saw." The silence stretched between them like a chasm, threatening to swallow everything. Finally, Ethan nodded. "I think so. I don't know for certain, but there were 2 little girls with her, twins." Victoria's face drained of color. "Did you know when you left her?" "No, God, no. I would never have—" Would he? Would he have stayed if he'd known? Or would he have made the identical choice, accepted the identical promotion, chosen his career trajectory over everything else? He wanted to believe he would have stayed, but he didn't trust himself enough to be certain. "What are you going to do?" Victoria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know." She turned away, arms wrapped protectively around herself. "My father saved your company, Ethan. He gave you everything back. This wedding isn't just about us anymore." "I know. If you walk away now, both our families lose everything. The merger collapses. Your company goes under. My father's reputation suffers because he backed you publicly." Her voice fractured. "And I lose you." Ethan reached for her, but she stepped away.
"Don't touch me right now," she whispered. "I need space to think." She left him standing alone in the office with sunrise bleeding through the windows and his phone burning a hole in his pocket. Instead of calling back, he opened his laptop and searched Rivers Consulting. The website was sleek, professional, perfectly designed. Sophia's face smiled from the About page, her biography outlining an impressive trajectory. Founded 6 years ago, grew from a solo operation to a team of 15 elite consultants, specialized in corporate restructuring and strategic planning, clients across 4 states, projected annual revenue in the millions. She'd accomplished all of this while raising twins alone. The office phone rang, shattering his thoughts. His assistant calling, despite it being Saturday. "Sir, I apologize for the interruption, but you have a visitor in the lobby. She says it's urgent, a Miss Rivers." Ethan's heart lurched into his throat. "Send her up." He straightened his tie, ran a hand through his disheveled hair, tried to control his racing pulse. What would he say to her? What could he possibly say after 7 years of silence? The elevator chimed. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. His office door opened. Victoria Rivers stood there, and she bore no resemblance to the memory he'd carried. She wore a navy dress that radiated expensive sophistication, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo. Diamond studs glinted in her ears, but her eyes, those eyes remained exactly the same, dark, deep, and currently burning with barely contained fury. "How did you find me?" demanded she. No greeting, no pleasantries. "I didn't. Arya called me." "My daughter called you?" Sophia's voice rose dangerously. "How did she obtain your number?" "She found my business card at her school. I think she was curious." Sophia closed her eyes, took a deliberate breath. "She's 6 years old. She doesn't understand privacy or boundaries yet. I apologize that she bothered you." "She didn't bother me." Ethan's words tumbled out desperately. "Sophia, I need to ask you." "No." Sophia held up one hand like a barrier. "You don't get to ask me anything. You don't get to materialize after 7 years and demand answers." "Are they mine?" The question erupted from him. "Elena and Arya, are they my daughters?" Sophia's expression transformed into stone. "What do you want, Ethan? An apology? Closure? Some way to absolve your guilty conscience?" "I want the truth." "The truth!" She laughed, bitter, sharp, devastating. "The truth is, I was 3 months pregnant when you told me I wasn't part of your long-term plan, when you said the promotion to New York was more valuable than what we had, when you chose your career over everything without even asking if there might be a reason to stay."
Ethan felt reality drop away beneath him. "You didn't tell me." "Why would I?" Her voice turned cold as winter. "You made it crystalline where I ranked in your priorities. I wasn't going to trap you with a pregnancy when you'd already decided I was disposable." "I never said you were disposable." "You said, and I quote, 'You're a wonderful person, Sophia, but you're not part of my future.' Remember that? You said it's standing in my apartment with your bags already packed, your decision already made. So I let you go, and I built a life without you." "Those girls at the bus stop," Ethan said quietly. "They're 6 years old, almost 7. Are they mine?" Sophia met his eyes, and he saw everything there. Pain, rage, the years of struggle he'd never witnessed. "Yes, they're yours biologically, but you're not their father, Ethan. You don't get to claim that title just because you donated DNA." The words struck him like physical blows. "I didn't know." "Would it have mattered?" Her voice trembled slightly. "Would you really have stayed, given up that corner office, that 6-figure salary, that express lane to executive status?" Ethan wanted to say yes, wanted to believe he would have made a different choice. But they both knew the truth. He'd chosen himself. He'd always chosen himself. "What do you want from me?" Sophia asked, exhaustion seeping into her voice. "I want to know them, meet them, be part of their lives." "No." The word was sharp as broken glass. "You don't get to walk in and disrupt everything I've built. Elena and Arya have a good life. They're happy, stable, loved. You're a stranger to them." "I'm their father. You're a sperm donor who happened to be in love with me 7 years ago. There's a difference." She moved towards the door. "Stay away from us, Ethan. I mean it. You made your choice then. Live with it now." "Sophia, please. I have a company to run and daughters to raise alone, like I've done for nearly 7 years. We don't need you." She left without looking back. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a coffin lid sealing. Ethan stood in his empty office, surrounded by the trappings of the success he'd sacrificed everything to achieve, and realized he'd never felt more bankrupt in his entire life. The medical records request arrived via courier on Tuesday, delivered to Ethan's office in a manila envelope that felt heavier than it should. He stared at the letterhead, Rivers Legal Services. Arya Rivers, age 6, has been diagnosed with hereditary angioedema type 3. Treatment requires comprehensive family medical history, particularly paternal lineage. As biological father, your cooperation in providing genetic background is legally requested and medically necessary. Ethan's hands trembled as he absorbed the clinical language, the formal description of a condition he'd never heard of. He immediately called his assistant. "Get me the best specialist in blood disorders. I don't care what it costs or how quickly you have to move." 3 hours later, he sat across from Dr. Amara Chen, a hematologist who explained in careful, measured terms what the condition meant. Not fatal, but serious. Required constant monitoring, medication, lifestyle adjustments. Arya would need quarterly checkups for the rest of her life. She'd inherited it from Ethan's side, a rare genetic mutation that skipped generations, surfacing unpredictably. "Do you have access to your family's complete medical records?" Dr. Chen asked, her expression professionally sympathetic. Ethan thought of his father, currently in hospice with stage 4 lung cancer, thought of his grandmother who died from a blood clot when Ethan was 10, the pieces assembling themselves into a devastating picture. "I can obtain them," he said quietly. The next day, he met Sophia at Children's Memorial Hospital. She sat in the waiting room, exhausted, her polished armor completely stripped away. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, dark circles carved beneath her eyes like bruises. She looked up when he entered, her expression carefully neutral. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice flat, professional. Ethan sat 2 chairs away, maintaining respectful distance. "How is she?" "Stable. They're running additional tests." Sophia's voice remained clinical. "The doctor needs your family medical history going back 3 generations, genetic disorders, blood conditions, anything relevant." "I'll get everything. My father is at Westside Hospice. I can request his complete records today." Sophia's head snapped up. "Your father's dying?" "Lung cancer, stage 4. He has maybe 3 months remaining." Something flickered across her face. Sympathy, perhaps, or simply exhaustion making her guard slip. "I'm sorry," she said softly. They sat in silence, surrounded by the antiseptic smell of the hospital and distant sounds of children crying. Ethan wanted to ask about Elena, about how they were managing this, about whether Arya was frightened, but Sophia's body language screamed, "Don't touch, don't ask, don't pretend you have the right." A doctor emerged, a young woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders. "Miss Rivers, Arya is asking for you." Sophia stood immediately, paused, looked at Ethan with something resembling hesitation. "Do you want to meet her?" Every cell in his body screamed yes, but he saw the fear in Sophia's eyes, the way she held herself rigid, protecting what was hers. "Not like this," he heard himself say. "Not when she's sick and scared. That's not how I want her to remember meeting me for the first time." Relief washed visibly across Sophia's features. "Thank you." She disappeared through the double doors. Ethan sat in the waiting room for 4 more hours, even though no one asked him to stay. He scrolled through his phone, ordered his father's comprehensive medical records, researched hereditary angioedema until his eyes burned with information overload. When Sophia finally emerged, it was past midnight. She looked destroyed. "She's sleeping," Sophia's voice said, hollow. They're keeping her overnight for observation. And Elena? With my neighbor, a woman who's been like a grandmother to them. I don't have family, Ethan. My parents died when I was 19. It's just been me and the girls since they were born." The weight of that statement crushed him. 7 years of doing everything alone, no help, no support, no one to call at midnight when a child spiked a fever or had nightmares or needed comfort in the dark. "I'm getting my family medical records," Ethan said quietly. "Everything you need. I'll have it delivered by Friday." "Thank you." "I know you don't want me involved, but this condition, Arya is going to need this information her entire life. And if there are other genetic factors I don't know about yet, things that might affect Elena too." "I know." Sophia's voice cracked slightly. "I know you're right. I just don't know how to do this, how to let you in without everything collapsing." Ethan wanted to reach for her hand, wanted to promise he'd be there, be present, be the father he should have been from the beginning. But promises were worthless when you'd already proven yourself unreliable. "One step at a time," he said instead. "Medical records first, then we figure out the rest." Sophia nodded, too exhausted to argue. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Where are you? You missed dinner with my parents." He'd completely forgotten the pre-wedding dinner with Victoria's family, an important event where they were supposed to finalize reception details. Guilt crashed through him like a wave. "I have to go," he told Sophia, "but call me if anything changes with Arya, anytime. I mean it." She didn't respond, just sat there beneath the fluorescent lighting, a woman who'd carried everything alone for so long she'd forgotten how to share the weight. Ethan drove home, walked into the penthouse at 2 a.m, found Victoria awake on the couch, still dressed. "You were with her," she said, not a question. "Her daughter is in the hospital. Arya, she has a blood condition. They needed my family medical history." Victoria's expression softened marginally. "Is she okay?" "Stable, but she'll need treatment for the rest of her life." "And you're going to be involved now." Another statement, not a question. Ethan sank onto the couch beside her. "I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know I can't pretend they don't exist." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "My mother asked me tonight if you were having an affair. I told her no. Was I lying? I'm not sleeping with Sophia. But you're in love with her. Still, after all these years." Ethan didn't answer, which was answer enough. Victoria stood, moved to the window overlooking the city. "My father built his entire business strategy around our marriage, Ethan. He merged his firm with yours because he believed we were a team. If you walk away now, it doesn't just hurt me, it destroys both our families." "I know." "Do you?" She turned to face him, tears glistening in her eyes. "Do you really understand what's at stake? Your company only exists because my father saved it. You were drowning 3 years ago and he threw you a lifeline. The price was this marriage. You agreed. We both agreed." "I know what I agreed to." "Then honor your agreement." Her voice turned fierce. "Be a father to those girls if you must. Send child support. Provide medical care, whatever they need. But don't detonate our entire lives for a woman who didn't even tell you she was pregnant." The words stung because they contained truth. Sophia had chosen to raise the twins alone. She'd built a fortress around herself and her daughters. She didn't want Ethan climbing those walls. So why was he trying so desperately to breach them? "I need time to think," Ethan said. Victoria's laugh was bitter, broken. "We're getting married in 8 weeks, Ethan. How much time do you need?" He had no answer. She left him sitting there in the dark, alone with his thoughts and his failures, and the knowledge that no matter what choice he made, someone he cared about would be destroyed. But as he sat there in the silence, his phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number, again. "Mr. Cross?" A child's voice, slightly deeper, more serious. "This is Elena, Arya's sister." Ethan's heart stopped. "Elena, hi. Arya told you she called you. She's not supposed to use Mama's phone without permission, but she does it anyway." A pause. "Are you really our dad?" "How do you explain adult failures to a 6-year-old? "Yes, I am," Ethan said carefully. Then why didn't you ever come see us? The question demolished him. That's complicated, sweetheart. Mama says adults say things are complicated when they don't want to tell the truth. Elena sounded exactly like Sophia, sharp, direct, no nonsense. Ethan smiled despite himself. Your mama is very smart. I know. She built a whole company. She's the boss of 15 people. That's impressive. Are you going to come meet us for real, not just talk on the phone? Ethan's throat tightened. Do you want me to? Elena was quiet for a moment. Aria does. She draws pictures of what she thinks daddies look like. None of them look like you, though. We looked you up on the computer. You're old. I'm 33. That's old. Mama's only 31. Fair point. I have to go. Mama's coming. A pause. But, Mr. Cross, if you're really our dad, you should probably start acting like it, because Mama works really hard, and sometimes she cries at night when she thinks we're asleep, and I think she's lonely. The line went dead. Ethan sat in the dark, holding his phone, feeling like he'd just been lectured by a 6-year-old who was absolutely right. If he was their father, he needed to act like it. But what did that mean when the mother of his children had built walls so high he couldn't see over them? When he was engaged to a woman whose family had saved him from bankruptcy? He didn't have an answer. But one thing was crystalline. He was standing at a crossroads, and whichever path he chose would destroy someone he cared about. The only question was, could he live with himself if he chose wrong again?
The memories ambushed Ethan at unpredictable moments over the following days. During conference calls, he'd suddenly recall the way Sophia used to steal his coffee in the mornings, claiming hers never tasted right. While reviewing contracts, he'd see her handwriting on old notes she'd left him. Good luck on your presentation. You're going to be amazing. But the worst memory was the day he'd left. 7 years ago, standing in her small apartment with his bags already packed, his flight to New York booked, his new life waiting like a promised land. Sophia had been crying, asking him to reconsider, questioning why he couldn't delay the promotion for a few months, find a way to make long-distance work. He'd been so certain then, so absolutely convinced that staying meant stagnation, that love was something you pursued after securing success, not before. He'd prepared a speech about timing and career trajectories, about how sometimes the intelligent choice wasn't the easy choice. What he'd actually said was worse. You're a wonderful person, Sophia, but you're not part of my future. This opportunity requires total focus, and I can't be worried about maintaining a relationship while building my career. You understand, right? She'd stopped crying, just looked at him with those devastating eyes and said, "Get out." He'd been relieved. No messy goodbye scene, no prolonged drama. He'd walked out, caught his flight, started his new position Monday morning, and convinced himself he'd made the mature decision. He'd never called her again. Now, sitting in his office with Aria's medical records spread across his desk, Ethan understood the full weight of what he'd done. Sophia had been 3 months pregnant when he delivered that speech about her not being part of his future. She'd been carrying his daughters, and he'd told her she didn't matter enough to keep. No wonder she'd never told him. His assistant knocked. "Sir, your father's hospice nurse called. He's asking to see you. She said it's urgent." Ethan drove to Westside Hospice, a depressing building that tried too hard to appear cheerful with pastel walls and artificial plants that fooled no one. His father lay in bed, shrunken and gray, oxygen tubes snaking into his nose. James Cross had been a giant once, 6'3", commanding presence, the kind of CEO who could silence a boardroom with a glance. Cancer had reduced him to bones and papery skin. "Ethan," his father's voice was barely a rasp. "Sit." Ethan pulled up a chair. They'd never been close, even before the illness. James Cross had been more interested in quarterly reports than parent-teacher conferences, more likely to critique Ethan's business decisions than ask about his life. Ethan pulled up a chair. "I obtained your medical records," Ethan said. "Turns out you passed on a rare blood condition. To me,
and to my daughter." His father's eyes widened slightly. "You have a daughter?" "Two. Twins. They're 6 years old, almost 7. The girl you left when you relocated here." It wasn't a question. His father had always been sharp, even while dying. "Yes." James was quiet for a long moment, the oxygen machine hissing rhythmically in the background. "I told you to leave her," he said finally. "Do you remember? When you got that promotion offer, I said a woman like that would hold you back. I said you needed to focus on career first, relationships later." Ethan did remember. His father's advice had validated his own fears, made the choice feel strategic rather than selfish. "You were wrong," Ethan said quietly. "I know." His father's hand trembled as he reached for a water glass. "I built an empire, Ethan, gave you every advantage, every opportunity, and I'm dying alone in this place with nurses who forget my name. Your mother left me 15 years ago because I chose work over her. You barely visit, and now I discover I have grandchildren I'll never meet." His voice cracked. "That's my legacy." Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. "I raised you to think like me, to believe success was the only thing that mattered, and look where it got us both. I'm dying, and I can't name a single person who will cry at my funeral because they loved me. Only people who will cry because they lost a business connection." "Dad, do you love her, the mother of your children?" The question hung there, impossible to evade. Ethan thought about Sophia in the hospital waiting room, exhausted, fierce, so completely alone. Thought about the life she'd built without him, the strength it must have taken. "Yes," he admitted, "I never stopped." "Then why are you sitting here? Why aren't you fighting for her?" "Because I'm engaged to someone else. Because there are business obligations, family expectations. Because Sophia doesn't want me back." His laughter cracked. "You're making all the same mistakes I did, putting duty before love, business before family, and you'll end up exactly like me, successful and completely alone. It's not that simple. It never is." His father's eyes closed briefly. "But let me tell you what I've learned in this bed, watching my life drain away. None of it matters. The money, the power, the respect, it all disappears the second you take your last breath. The only thing that stays is the people you loved and who loved you back. That's the only legacy worth leaving." Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Aria's being discharged tomorrow. The girls have been asking about you. If you're serious about being in their lives, come to Riverside Park tomorrow at 10 a.m. 15 minutes. That's all you get." His heart hammered. "What is it?" his father asked, reading his expression. "Sophia's letting me meet them, the girls, tomorrow." James reached out with a trembling hand, gripped Ethan's wrist with surprising strength. "Then go, meet your daughters, and Ethan," his voice grew urgent, "don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't choose an empire over a family, because empires crumble, son, but family is forever." The next morning, Ethan arrived at Riverside Park 15 minutes early, his hands shaking, his heart threatening to burst through his ribs. The park was mostly empty. A few joggers, one woman pushing a stroller. He stood near the playground equipment, watching the entrance like a man waiting for judgment. At exactly 10 a.m., Sophia appeared, and beside her, holding her hands, were Elena and Aria. They wore jeans in matching jackets, one red, one blue. They looked curious but cautious, their eyes scanning the park until they landed on him. Ethan's breath caught. They were beautiful. Perfect, undeniably his. Sophia stopped a few feet away, creating a protective barrier between him and the girls. "Girls," she said quietly, "this is Mr. Cross. He's a friend of mine." "You're the man from the business card," Elena said, her voice serious, analytical. "Yes, that's me," Ethan managed. Aria studied him with wide, curious eyes. You look different than in the pictures online. Older. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. I probably do. Why did you want to meet us? Elena asked, direct as her mother. Ethan knelt down to their level, his throat tight. Because I wanted to know the two most important people your mother has in her life. We're important? Arya asked. The most important, Ethan said, his voice breaking slightly. They studied him for a long moment. Then Arya said, Can I ask you something? Anything. Are you our dad? The question hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sophia's face went pale. Arya, that's not... It's okay, Ethan interrupted softly. He looked at both girls, saw the intelligence in their eyes, the way they'd clearly discussed this between themselves. Yes, I am. Why weren't you there before? Elena's voice wasn't accusatory, just curious, seeking to understand. Because I made a terrible mistake. I left your mother before I knew you existed, and by the time I found out about you, 7 years had passed, and I thought maybe it was too late. Is it? Too late? Ethan looked at Sophia. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her face, her arms wrapped around herself. I don't know, he admitted to the girls, but I'd like to try, if you and your mother will let me. Elena and Arya exchanged one of those silent twin communications that seemed to happen without words. Then Arya said, Can we show you something? She pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket pocket, carefully unfolded it, a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures, 2 small ones labeled Elena and Arya, and 1 tall one labeled Dad in messy handwriting. They were all holding hands under a rainbow. I drew this, Arya said. Before I knew what you looked like, I imagined you. Ethan's vision blurred. He took the drawing with trembling hands. It's beautiful, he whispered. You can keep it, if you want. I want to very much. Elena stepped closer, her expression still serious. If you're going to be our dad, you have to actually do it, not just visit sometimes. Dads are supposed to be there, all the time. You're right, and I want to be there, every day, if you let me. We're moving to Seattle, Arya said suddenly. Mama got a new job. We leave in 2 weeks. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. What? Sophia finally spoke, her voice thick with emotion. I accepted a position 3 weeks ago, before all this. We're relocating. Ethan stood slowly, looking at Sophia. You're leaving? It's triple my current salary, equity stake in a national firm, a fresh start for the girls. I made my decision. When were you going to tell me? I just did. They stared at each other across the chasm of 7 years and 2 children and all the words that had been said and left unsaid. The girls deserve stability, Sophia said quietly. They deserve someone who's all in, not someone who's torn between 2 lives. You have your company, your wedding, your whole existence here. We're not asking you to give that up. What if I want to? Sophia shook her head. Don't make promises you can't keep, Ethan. Not to them. They'll remember. Elena tugged on Sophia's sleeve. Mama, can we go play on the swings? Just for a minute? Sophia hesitated, then nodded. Stay where I can see you. The girls ran toward the playground, leaving Ethan and Sophia alone. You can't just take them away, Ethan said, desperation creeping into his voice. I'm not taking them away. I'm giving them a better life, and you're welcome to be part of it. Video calls, visits, whatever you can manage with your schedule. Her voice turned cold. But I won't wait around hoping you'll choose us, Ethan. I did that 7 years ago. It almost destroyed me. I'm trying to choose you now. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're still engaged to Victoria Hartwell. You're still running your company. You're still living the life you chose over me. She stepped closer, her voice fierce. I need you to understand something. Those girls have never had a father. They've never had anyone but me. And they're happy, Ethan. They're well-adjusted and loved, and they don't need someone who's going to show up halfway. I want to be all the way in. Then prove it.
Sophia's eyes blazed. Make a real choice. Not a maybe, not a someday. A choice that shows them, shows me, that they matter more than your comfort or your career or your fear of losing everything. And if I make that choice, then we'll talk, but not before. She turned toward the playground, where the girls were taking turns pushing each other on the swings. Your 15 minutes are up, Ethan. I think you should go. He wanted to argue, wanted to stay, wanted to demand more time. But he'd already stolen 7 years. He didn't have the right to demand anything. As he walked away, he heard Arya's voice call out, "Bye, Mr. Cross. Come see us again." He turned back. Both girls waved from the swings, smiling. And in that moment, Ethan Cross, CEO, millionaire, master of his own empire, realized that everything he'd built meant nothing compared to those 2 little girls waving goodbye. His father's words echoed, "Don't choose an empire over a family, because empires crumble, son. But family is forever." He had 2 weeks to figure out if he was brave enough to make the right choice this time. 2 weeks before they disappeared to Seattle. 2 weeks to decide if he was the kind of man who could walk away from everything for the people that mattered most. The clock was ticking.
My beautiful family, if this story is touching your soul, if you feel the weight of Ethan's choice, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories of redemption, sacrifice, and the courage to choose love over everything else. Where in the world are you watching from? Tell us in the comments. Now, let's continue. The company gala invitation arrived like a death sentence, embossed gold lettering on heavy cardstock. You are cordially invited to the Hartwell Cross merger celebration. 300 guests, black tie, the official announcement of the merger that would cement both families' legacies. And it was scheduled for exactly 6 days before Sophia and the girls were supposed to leave for Seattle. Ethan sat in his office, staring at the invitation while his entire world contracted around him. Victoria entered without knocking. She wore a champagne-colored dress, her hair styled perfectly, looking every inch the polished executive's wife she was meant to become. "The final guest list is confirmed," she said, sitting across from him. 300 people. The mayor will be there, several tech CEOs. My father has even convinced Senator Morrison to attend. She paused. "This is the most important night of our lives, Ethan." He couldn't look at her. "Ethan?" Her voice softened. "Are you having second thoughts about the announcement?" "I'm having second thoughts about everything," he wanted to scream. Instead, he said, "I met them, the girls, last week." Victoria went very still. "And they're remarkable. Intelligent, kind, curious. They figured out I was their father before anyone told them." His voice cracked. "Victoria, they drew me pictures. Arya gave me a drawing she made of what she imagined I looked like." "Victoria!" "They're leaving, moving to Seattle in less than 2 weeks. Sophia accepted a job there, and I'm standing here in this office preparing to announce a merger and plan a wedding while my daughters disappear across the country." Victoria stood, moved to the window. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, "Do you know what my father told me 3 years ago when he first proposed this arrangement?" Ethan shook his head. He said, "Victoria, I've built an empire, but it means nothing if I can't pass it on to my children properly. This merger with Ethan Cross's company secures our family's future for generations, but I need you to be willing to marry him. I can't force that." She turned to face him, tears glistening. "And I said yes, not because Daddy asked me to, not because it made business sense, but because I'd watched you at charity events for 2 years, Ethan. Watched you work harder than anyone else, watched you rebuild your company from ashes, and I thought maybe I could be the person who gave you a reason to stop running. Victoria, I love you." The words came out broken. "I've loved you for 3 years, and I've known for at least 6 months that you don't love me back, not the way I love you, but I kept hoping, kept telling myself that maybe love was something that could grow over time if I just gave it enough space. Ethan felt like his chest was being crushed. But those girls changed everything, didn't they? Not because they exist, but because their mother is still the woman you never got over, the one you're still in love with after 7 years. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Her voice turned fierce. Just tell me the truth. Are you going to marry me in 8 weeks? The question hung there, impossible to evade. Ethan thought about Arya's drawing, carefully folded in his wallet. Thought about Elena's serious voice. If you're going to be our dad, you have to actually do it. Thought about Sophia crying in the park. Make a real choice. Thought about his father dying alone in a hospice bed, whispering, "Don't make the same mistakes I did." He admitted, "I honestly don't know if I can." Victoria nodded slowly, as if she'd been expecting this answer. "Then I'm going to make this easy for you." She walked to his desk, picked up her phone. "I'm calling my father right now. I'm telling him you're having doubts, and I'm giving him the option to pull out of the merger before the gala." "Victoria, wait." "No," she held up a hand. "You don't get to have it both ways, Ethan. You don't get to keep my family's investment, keep your company afloat, and then walk away from me for another woman. That's not how this works. Your father will destroy me. The company will collapse." "I know," she said. Her voice was steady. "But at least you'll be free to make a real choice instead of trapped by obligation." She started to dial. Ethan lunged forward, grabbed her wrist. "Please, don't." She looked at his hand on her wrist, then up at his face. "Give me one good reason why you shouldn't." "Because," Ethan struggled to find words, "because 300 people are depending on this merger, employees who have families, people who trusted me to build something stable. That's not a good reason, Ethan. That's just another excuse. You want to know what a good reason would be is because I love you, Victoria, and I want to build a life with you. But you can't say that, can you?" He couldn't. "Then we're done." She turned toward the door. "Victoria, please, just give me until the gala. Let me figure this out." She stopped, her hand on the doorknob. "You have 6 days, Ethan. 6 days to decide what kind of man you want to be. The kind who honors his commitments and saves 300 jobs, or the kind who burns everything down for a woman who doesn't even want him back." She left. Ethan collapsed into his chair, his phone immediately buzzing with texts. From his business partner, "Victoria's father just called an emergency board meeting. What's happening?" From his assistant, "Sir, there are rumors circulating about the merger being in jeopardy. Reporters are asking for statements." From an unknown number, "This is Elena. Mama doesn't know she has her phone. We're packing boxes today. Our room looks empty. Are you coming to say goodbye before we leave?" That last message destroyed him. He texted back, "I wouldn't miss it. I promise." Elena's response came immediately. "Mama says promises are only real if you keep them. Will you keep this one?" Ethan stared at the screen, unable to answer. That night, he returned to Westside Hospice. His father was worse, barely conscious, the oxygen mask covering his entire face now. "Dad," Ethan said, taking his father's papery hand, "I don't know what to do." James pulled down the mask with trembling fingers. "Tell me." So Ethan did, told him everything, about the gala, about Victoria's ultimatum, about Elena's text message and Sophia's walls, and the choice that would either save or destroy everything he'd built. When he finished, his father was quiet for so long Ethan thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, "Do you remember when you were 10? Your baseball championship game?" Ethan frowned. "Yeah, you missed it. You had a board meeting in Tokyo." "I remember sitting in that hotel room, watching the clock, knowing your game was starting, knowing you'd be looking for me in the stands." His father's voice cracked. "I told myself business came first, that you'd understand when you were older, that providing for you was more important than being there for you." Tears streamed down James's weathered face. "You hit a home run that day. Your coach called me to tell me, said you kept looking in the stands for me after you crossed home plate, and when you didn't see me, you just stopped smiling. Ethan's throat tightened. He'd forgotten that game, or maybe he'd buried it. I have a lot of regrets, Ethan, but that one, missing your moment because I thought money mattered more than memories, that's the one that haunts me. His father gripped his hand. Don't do what I did. Don't choose an empty empire over a full life. But 300 people depend on my company. They'll find other jobs, other companies, but those 2 little girls, they'll only have one father. And right now, that father has a choice. Show up or disappear forever. The oxygen alarm started beeping. The nurse rushed in. You need to let him rest, she said gently. Ethan stood, but his father grabbed his wrist one more time. The gala, Ethan whispered. If you're going to make a choice, make it there, in front of everyone. Don't hide, don't run. Stand up and tell the truth, whatever it costs you. Dad, promise me. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. I promise. His father released him, slipping back into unconsciousness. The days before the gala blurred together. Ethan spent hours with his lawyers, understanding exactly what would happen if the merger collapsed. Bankruptcy within 6 months, 300 employees laid off, his reputation destroyed, professional relationships severed. He met with financial advisors who painted grim pictures of his future, potential lawsuits from investors, years of debt, possible criminal charges for breach of contract. And every night, he lay awake thinking about Arya's drawing, Elena's serious voice, Sophia's tears in the park. 3 days before the gala, Sophia texted him, The girls wanted to invite you to our goodbye dinner. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m., our house. No pressure, just if you want to say goodbye properly. He texted back immediately, I'll be there. The next evening, he arrived at Sophia's modest townhouse with his heart in his throat. Through the window, he could see boxes stacked everywhere, the walls bare, the life they'd built being dismantled. Sophia answered the door in jeans and a sweater, looking exhausted. They've been excited all day, she said quietly. Please don't break their hearts, Ethan. I won't. Promise? He thought about his father's words about promises only mattering if you kept them. I promise, he said. Inside, Elena and Arya had set the table with mismatched plates and hand-drawn placemats. They'd made spaghetti, clearly with Sophia's help, and a lopsided cake that said Goodbye, Mr. Cross in wobbly frosting letters. We made everything ourselves, Arya announced proudly. Well, Mama helped a little, Elena admitted, but mostly us. They ate dinner together, the girls chattering about their new school in Seattle, their new house, how they were nervous but excited. Ethan listened, asking questions, laughing at their jokes, memorizing every detail. This was what he'd missed for 6 years, this ordinary magic of family dinners and children's laughter and belonging to something bigger than himself. When it was time to leave, Sophia walked him to the door. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. It meant a lot to them. Sophia, Ethan turned to face her. I need to tell you something. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't tell me you're going to change everything unless you actually mean it. I do mean it. You have a gala in 2 days, a wedding in 6 weeks, a company that depends on you. You can't just... Watch me. She stared. What does that mean? It means I'm done choosing wrong. It means I've wasted 7 years running from the only thing that ever mattered. It means... His phone rang. His assistant. Sir, there's an emergency. Your father. The hospice has called. You need to come now. Ethan's world tilted. He looked at Sophia, saw understanding in her eyes. Go, she said. Be with him. He ran to his car, drove to Westside Hospice with his heart hammering.
He was too late. His father had died 20 minutes before Ethan arrived. Peacefully, the nurse said. He'd asked for Ethan at the end, but slipped away before he could get there. Ethan sat beside his father's body, holding his cold hand, and wept for everything they'd never said to each other, for all the moments his father had missed, for the warning he'd given too late. Don't do what I did. Don't choose an empty empire over a full life. In his father's nightstand, the nurse found an envelope addressed to Ethan. Inside, a letter in his father's shaking handwriting. Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I pray that you made a different choice than I did. I'm leaving you everything,
The house, the investments, the inheritance I spent my life building. It's all yours. But here's the truth. None of it will keep you warm at night. None of it will call you Dad. None of it will remember you when you're gone. You asked me for advice, and I gave it to you. But advice is worthless if you don't have the courage to follow it. So here's my final gift to you. Permission. Permission to fail, permission to disappoint people, permission to choose love over legacy. Because I'm proof that legacy without love is just an expensive headstone in an empty cemetery. Don't be me, son. Be better. Love, Dad. Ethan folded the letter carefully, slipped it into his pocket, and walked out of the hospice. He had 2 days until the gala. 2 days to decide if he was brave enough to destroy everything for a chance at what actually mattered. 2 days to choose between the man he'd been and the man he wanted to become. The clock was still ticking, but now, for the first time in 7 years, Ethan Cross knew exactly what he was going to do. The grand ballroom of the Hartwell estate was a cathedral of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers dripped light like liquid diamonds. 300 guests in designer gowns and bespoke tuxedos sipped champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. Orchestra music floated through the cavernous space, elegant and refined. Ethan Cross stood near the bar, watching the spectacle unfold around him, and felt like he was attending his own funeral. Victoria looked breathtaking in a silver gown that caught the light with every movement. She worked the room with practiced grace, smiling, laughing, playing the role of happy bride-to-be with an expertise that broke his heart because he knew it wasn't entirely performance. She'd wanted this, wanted him, wanted the future they were supposedly building, and he was about to destroy it all. "There's the man of the hour!" Marcus Hartwell's voice boomed as he approached with a cluster of business associates. Victoria's father was imposing even in formal wear, silver hair perfectly styled, presence commanding. "Ethan, you remember Senator Morrison?" Ethan shook hands, made small talk, nodded along to conversations about market trends and strategic partnerships. His mind was elsewhere. In his pocket, his phone held a text from Elena. "Mama says we're leaving tomorrow morning early. I guess we won't see you again. That's okay. Thank you for the dinner. It was nice having a dad for one night." That message had arrived 2 hours ago. He hadn't responded because he didn't know what to say. Not yet. Not until he did what he came here to do. Across the ballroom near the rose garden entrance, he spotted a familiar figure. Sophia. She wore a deep emerald dress that hugged her curves, her hair styled in an elegant updo. She was talking to someone Ethan didn't recognize, laughing at something they'd said, completely at ease in this world of wealth and power, because she belonged here now. She'd earned it. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Sophia's smile faltered. She said something to her companion and moved away, disappearing through the French doors into the garden. Ethan excused himself from Marcus's group and followed. He found her by the koi pond, standing alone, arms wrapped around herself despite the warm evening. "You are here," he said. "Business circles overlap," Sophia replied without turning. "Marcus Hartwell's firm uses my consulting services occasionally. I was invited professionally. I didn't know this was your merger announcement until I arrived." "You could have left." "I could have." She finally turned to face him. "But I'm not going to let you control where I go or what events I attend. I built my reputation in this city. I'm not hiding from you." "Fair enough." They stood in awkward silence, listening to the distant sound of music and laughter from the party. "The girls wanted me to thank you for coming to dinner," Sophia said quietly. "For coming to dinner. It meant everything to them. It meant everything to me." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight of 7 years of doing everything alone. "We're leaving tomorrow morning, early. The movers are coming at 6. "I know. So this is goodbye." It wasn't a question.
Before Ethan could respond, Isabella Hartwell's voice rang out over the sound system, amplified across the estate. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" The crowd quieted, turning toward the main ballroom entrance where Isabella stood on a small platform, microphone in hand, radiant in a designer gown. "Thank you all for joining us this evening to celebrate the engagement of my daughter Victoria and her fiancé, Ethan Cross. We are thrilled to be welcoming Ethan into our family officially." Applause rippled through the crowd. Sophia started to move away. "I should go. This is your moment." Ethan grabbed her wrist gently. "Wait, please. Ethan." "And now," Isabella continued, her voice carrying across the garden, "I'm delighted to officially announce the Hartwell-Cross merger. Two great families, two powerful legacies, united in business and in love." More applause. Victoria joined her mother on the platform, smiling graciously. "My husband Marcus will now say a few words about what this merger means for our community and our future." Marcus took the microphone, launched into a speech about family and legacy and the importance of the merger to the business community. Ethan couldn't hear it. The world had narrowed to the sound of his own heartbeat and Sophia's presence beside him. "You made your choice," Sophia whispered. "You're here, about to announce this merger, about to marry her. That's fine, Ethan. It's your life. But let me go so I can leave with what's left of my dignity." "I'm not announcing the merger." She froze. "What?" "And now," Marcus's voice boomed, "I'd like to invite the man who made this all possible, Ethan Cross, to join me for the official announcement. Ethan, where are you?" Heads turned, searching the crowd. Ethan released Sophia's wrist, took a breath, and walked toward the platform. Sophia followed at a distance, slipping back into the crowd, watching. Ethan climbed the steps. Marcus handed him the microphone, beaming. Victoria stood beside her father, her expression carefully neutral, but Ethan could see the question in her eyes. "Are you really going to do this?" He looked out at 300 faces, business partners, investors, colleagues, friends, the mayor, Senator Morrison, all of them waiting to hear him celebrate the future they'd all worked toward. His father's voice echoed in his memory. "If you're going to make a choice, make it there, in front of everyone. Don't hide." Elena's voice. "If you're going to be our dad, you have to actually do it." Arya's drawing in his wallet, 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. Ethan gripped the microphone, took a breath. "Thank you all for being here tonight." His voice shook slightly. 3 years ago, when my company was drowning, Marcus Hartwell threw me a lifeline. He saved everything I'd built, asked for very little in return, and trusted me when most people wouldn't. Nods of agreement from the crowd. That trust, that partnership, it meant everything, still does. He paused. "But I need to tell you all something about who I am and the mistakes I've made." Confusion rippled through the room. Victoria went pale. Marcus's smile faltered. 3 years ago, Ethan continued, his voice gaining strength, I was in love with a woman named Sophia Rivers. When I got a promotion that required relocating, I left her, told her she wasn't part of my long-term plan. It was the most selfish thing I've ever done. Whispers started. Phones came out. People recording. What I didn't know was that she was pregnant with twin daughters, girls I never knew existed 3 weeks ago. Gasps. More whispers. Marcus half rose from his seat, face reddening. Their names are Arya and Elena. They're 6 years old. They're brilliant and kind and perfect. Ethan's voice broke. And they figured out on their own that I'm their father, because I have their eyes apparently, because they're too intelligent to be fooled by adults pretending things aren't what they are. Victoria was crying now, silently, her mascara running.
My father met them last week. Ethan stopped, composed himself. He died 2 days ago, but meeting his granddaughters was the happiest I'd seen him in years, because they're what actually matters, not business deals or merger announcements or any of this. He looked directly at Marcus. You saved my company. You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful for that.
But the price you asked, marriage to your daughter, I can't pay it. Ethan, don't do this. Marcus's voice was thunder, barely controlled rage. Because Victoria deserves someone who loves her completely, Ethan continued, turning to her. Not someone who's pretending while his heart is somewhere else. And I'm in love with Sophia Rivers. I have been for 7 years, and she's leaving, taking my daughters to Seattle tomorrow morning because I've been too much of a coward to choose them, to sacrifice this comfortable life for something real. The room was dead silent now. 300 people frozen, watching a man commit professional suicide in real time. Victoria stood, somehow maintaining her dignity despite her tears. You're really doing this? Her voice carried across the silent room. Here? Now? I promised you I wouldn't. I'm breaking that promise. I'm breaking all of them. Because I finally realized, 7 years too late, that the only promise worth keeping is the one I make to myself. To be honest. To choose what's real over what's comfortable. You are destroying both our families. Isabella stood, furious. I know. Ethan's voice was steady now. And I'm sorry, but I can't marry your daughter while teaching my daughters that love means settling for less than you deserve. Marcus was on his feet. You understand what this means? The merger is dead. Every partnership, every investment, gone. Your company won't survive the month. I know. Then you're a fool. Probably, Ethan agreed, but I'd rather be a fool who tried than a coward who didn't. He set down the microphone. The room erupted in chaos, shouting, accusations, the scrape of chairs as people stood, reporters surging forward, cameras flashing, security moving toward the platform. Ethan didn't resist as they grabbed his arms, began escorting him toward the exit. He looked back once, found Sophia in the crowd. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, one hand over her mouth. Their eyes met. I chose you, he mouthed. I finally chose you. He couldn't tell if she understood. Security pulled him through the ballroom, past shocked guests and flashing cameras. Someone was live streaming everything. By tomorrow, his professional reputation would be destroyed, his name synonymous with betrayal and broken promises. He didn't care. Outside, in the cool night air, security released him. You need to leave the property now. Ethan walked to his car, hands shaking, adrenaline crashing through his system. He'd done it. He had actually done it. He had thrown away a billion-dollar merger and a life of certain luxury for a chance at a love he had abandoned 7 years ago. His phone was a chaotic mess of notifications. He was being eviscerated on social media. His board members were resigning via text. Victoria's brother, the CFO, had already sent a formal notice that their partnership was dissolved. He ignored it all. He drove straight to Sophia's house. The lights were on. The moving truck was already parked out front, a giant looming shadow in the driveway. Ethan stepped out of the car and saw Sophia standing on the porch. She was still in the emerald dress, but her feet were bare, her hair falling loose. She looked at him as if he were a ghost or a madman. You're a fool, Ethan, she said, her voice barely a whisper. You just lost everything. My firm's investigators told me the numbers. By Monday morning, you won't even have an office to go to. Ethan walked up the steps until he was standing a breath away from her. I sat in a room full of people who only liked me for my title, Sophia. I looked at the man I was becoming and I realized he was just like my father. I didn't lose everything tonight. I finally put down the bricks I've been carrying. Sophia searched his eyes, looking for the lie. She found only a raw, terrifying honesty. I don't know how to trust you, she admitted. You walked away once. You might walk away when the money runs out. Let me come to Seattle, not as a CEO, not as a millionaire, but as a man who will carry every box into your new house, a man who will show up to every soccer game and every bad dream. I'll work as a junior consultant. I'll drive a used car. I don't care about the throne anymore, Sophia. I just want to be home. A small voice came from the doorway. Aria stood there, clutching her stuffed elephant. Mr. Cross, are you coming with us? Ethan knelt, looking at the little girl who held his heart in her tiny hands. "Only if your mama says it's okay, Arya." Sophia looked at her daughter, then at Ethan. She saw the bead bracelet he was still wearing, the one that said, "Dad." Slowly, she reached out and took his hand. "The truck leaves at 6 a.m. If you're not here, the door stays locked." "I'll be here at 5:30, Ethan promised. 1 year later, the Seattle rain was soft, a gentle mist that settled over the green hills. Ethan sat on a wooden bench at the edge of a park, a thermos of lukewarm coffee beside him. He wasn't wearing an Armani suit. He was in a worn flannel shirt and jeans, his hands calloused from the small landscaping business he'd started. It wasn't a billion-dollar empire, but it was his, and more importantly, he was on time. "Dad, look!" Elena and Arya came sprinting across the grass, their matching purple backpacks bouncing. They were 7 now. They had his eyes, but they had Sophia's laugh. They threw themselves into his arms, and for the first time in his life, Ethan felt the kind of power that didn't require a boardroom. Sophia walked up behind them, smiling. She looked at the man who had been the Shadow King and saw the person he had finally become. "You're late for dinner," she teased, though her eyes were warm. "I'm never late for what matters," Ethan said as they stood up, pulling her close. He lost the skyscraper, he lost the penthouse, he lost the respect of the elite. But as he walked toward their modest home, a twin on each side and the woman he loved by his shoulder, Ethan Cross finally understood the truth. Redemption isn't about fixing the past, it's about choosing the future. And a legacy isn't built of cold stone and gold, it's built of the heartbeats of the people who call you home. My beautiful family, this story reminds us that it is never too late to do the right thing. No matter how much money you have, the only thing you take with you when you leave this world is the love you gave and the memories you made. If your heart is full, write "Love is enough" in the comments. Thank you for being part of our family. May your sacrifices always turn into victories, and may your homes always be filled with the laughter of those who love you. I am Mr. Peter, and I am always with you. Hand in hand, heart to heart, one family, one love, forever.